Hey guys, this is Mindcast with your host, Kevin Seaman, where we talk about what's going on in your head. Hi, welcome to Mindcast. My name is Kevin Seaman. I'm, among other things, a mental performance coach and author of 3 books on the subject. What this podcast will focus on is exposing you to the most powerful results-focused principles and strategies I've learned on how to use your mind to increase your performance in your life and ultimately improve your outcome. Most of my experience came from coaching athletes in combat sports to help them achieve greater success. How I started learning about this subject a couple of decades ago is definitely a subject for future Mindcast. To put it simply, the stimulus and motivation was due to my frustration with myself and what my life had become at that point in time. Basically, I started studying everything I could get my hands on just to be better because my life sucked. All knowledge begins with self-knowledge. Everything begins and ends in your mind. What you give power to has power over you if you allow it. Did you know your conscious mind talks to you constantly throughout the day? Did you also realize that this internal communication, or self-talk, is mostly negative? This self-talk tells you what not to do. It convinces you how hard things will be to accomplish, how it doesn't matter what you do, you'll be the same way you are. Your conscious mind identifies the problems you will have accomplishing what you want, and it plays out why you could fail. Your conscious mind lies to you every day. It lies to you by establishing beliefs and fantasies that you've grown up with. Many times we have deep-seated beliefs that are unfounded in logic, but are dictating our behavior on a subconscious level. These beliefs that determine our direction in life have been established and set in our subconscious, much like programming an electronic device. While we were growing up, we were actually programmed to believe much of what dictates our behavior. This programming was done by ourselves, internally communicated, by other people that command our attention, by life events and experiences, and quite often by our own imagination. Sometimes this internal communication comes through in short signals, directions, prompts, pictures, and visual mental movies, which you play inside your mind. Research has shown that we talk to ourselves tens of thousands of times a day. In fact, you're probably talking to yourself right now. You're probably saying, what? Tens of thousands of times per day? Really? Is that possible? This is one of the reasons you have allowed your conscious and subconscious mind to work in ways that could be making you sabotage your happiness and direct you to what is comfortable rather than challenging. Almost 90% of your fears are imaginary. They're a product of your mind. In reality, they do not exist. If you think you have control over your life, you're in delusion. You are living a life with what I refer to as an illusion of control. I love extreme sports. I always have. One of the crazy fun things that I learned how to do later in my life is kiteboarding. If you don't know what that is, it's basically surfing on a piece of plywood-thin board while literally being pulled by a wind-powered, gigantic kite. This sounds safe, doesn't it? When I was first learning how to kiteboard in the Dominican Republic, I had my instructor tell me that people think once they've learned how to control their balance and how to control the kite mechanically by harnessing the wind's power, that they're in control. Then he grinned at me and said, "That's bullshit. That's an illusion of control. You cannot in reality control the ocean, the wind, or any other part of nature. Things can change immediately and drastically for the worst. You need to maintain respect for the ocean. It's a great teacher, but a merciless master. If you don't realize this now, you will eventually. You only have an illusion of control. If the wind changes, if the sea becomes violent, you can die in a split second." Then he grinned at me, "Ready for your lesson?" I thought to myself, we haven't started yet? Here's the stark reality. There are only 3 things you have control over, and they're right inside of you. First is your internal dialogue or self-talk, and what you say to others. The second thing that you can control is the images and mental movies you produce and focus on. And the third and last thing is the most powerful, your actions. That's it. Everything else you think you can control is an illusion. One of the most powerful things I ever did was decide that I needed to raise my standards. I took a hard look at my life and asked some brutally honest questions. After all, it's my life. This is as real as it gets, and the only way to operate at an optimal level is to be honest with the conditions of my situation. What gets evaluated gets measured. That was definitely one of the most difficult things I ever did, was to be completely honest with myself. This can be challenging at times. Most of us love to point out our strengths, but none of us want to admit our inadequacies or weaknesses. But if you want to succeed and exceed your potential, it is absolutely crucial to your outcome that you be 100% honest with yourself. Stop telling yourself stories. Stop the rationalizations and stop the BS. Be completely honest with yourself as you evaluate your present behavior, your needs, and the direction you're headed in the future. Facts do not cease to exist because they're ignored. Aldous Huxley. Okay, full disclosure. I want to impress upon you from the very beginning, if you want the success and satisfaction you're capable of, and the feeling of happiness that comes from it, you must be disciplined and work at it. You have to be diligent, persistent, honest, and consistent. You can't fear failure. If that all seems too hard, you're listening to that little voice in your head again. One of the most powerful things I ever learned was writing in a notebook. I encourage everyone to get a notebook and record the things you learn about the things you study, yourself, and your life. This alone may be the most valuable thing you will ever do to accelerate your progress. I taught a course for several semesters at a major Ivy League university entitled The Winning Mindset. One of the first things I'd ask my students in my class was how many had a personal notebook or journal where they wrote down goals, ambitions, strategies for achievement, and things they want. They'd all look at me like a deer in the headlights of an oncoming tractor trailer. Then I asked them what was the most difficult course they were taking this semester: organic chemistry, microbiology, chemical engineering, or whatever it was. That was incredibly difficult. Then I would get this big smile on my face and say, "So, you probably don't need to take notes in that class." Okay, how many of you do take notes in that class? They looked at me like I was crazy. They all did. Excellent. Is that course any more difficult, frightening, uncertain, and challenging than your life and future? Crickets. One of the most incredible things about taking notes and writing things down is that writing is a psychoneuromuscular activity. When you write things down, your brain processes this action, and it retains the information more effectively. This is because you have to process it prior, during, and after the actual activity of writing it down. This is according to PhD Dr. Stephen Covey. Now, remember what I said earlier, that one of the most powerful things I ever did was raise my standards? That means I wasn't happy with my direction and my lifestyle. That meant something had to change. I was living below my potential, and I was okay with that. Not because I couldn't accomplish more. I had just accepted a lower standard because I thought it was easier. Boy, was I wrong. It's never crowded at the top. The mid-level, that's where all the competition is. And below that, opportunity is even more difficult to grasp. The first year after I raised my standards, I noticed things started happening, like really great things. It was like suddenly I became really lucky. Now, when people tell me I'm lucky, I laugh and I tell them I make my own luck. Make your own luck. You're not stuck. You're currently just committed to certain patterns of behavior because they may have helped you in the past. Now those behaviors have probably become more harmful than helpful. The reason why you can't move forward is because you probably keep applying an old formula to a new level in your life. Change that formula and you'll get a different result. If the recipe sucks, it doesn't matter how good a cook you are. Tim Ferriss, millionaire entrepreneur and global influencer. One of my favorite things to do is to ask questions. This was one of the most annoying things about me when I was growing up. It got me in hot water a lot. Obviously, I hadn't mastered my inside voice. As an adult, asking questions has helped me in many ways I can never comprehend. I ask myself questions constantly. Questions like, am I happy with my life? Do I love my job? Do I like the circumstances I'm living within? Is there anything I can do to change that? Is there a map or a plan that other people have used to change their direction? Is this all I will ever be? I still ask myself questions, and I ask other people questions also. This helps me understand more about them. If you seek to understand before you try to be understood, it's amazing how it affects your communication with someone. So here's a question. Do you like the circumstances you're living within? If you let your environment control your thoughts, you will be a product of that environment. When you change how you use your mind, you will change your circumstances. Do you think your current standards are set to a level that helps meet or even possibly exceed your potential? Both questions are simple, but not easy to answer. So I'm going to leave you to contemplate this. In my next Mindcast, we'll look at how we've established our beliefs, why we have them, and to recognize the power beliefs we've established have over us, what they allow us to do, what they keep us from even attempting, and what they prohibit us from accomplishing. Some of these beliefs control us in ways that are very detrimental to our personal success, and many times to our happiness in life. They inhibit our growth as a person by creating fear and imaginary barriers and limitations. We'll also look at the structure of how our beliefs are supported and how we can reestablish beliefs that are not beneficial to us, yet deeply embedded in our behavior. I think it's important to always be willing to truly consider any evidence that contradicts our beliefs and admit that we may be wrong. The basis of critical thinking is understanding that intelligence isn't about knowing everything. Rather, it's having the ability to challenge everything you know. Thank you. I look forward to having you check out my next Mindcast. Until then, remember to work to control the things in your life and circle of influence that you do have control over, instead of living in an illusion of control. Raise your standards and get the very most out of your life. Until next time, this is Kevin Seaman, and this is Mindcast.